Have you ever wondered what it takes to build a recording studio, or even what the inside of a recording studio looks like? Oh, come with me and I'll show you. Have you ever wondered what it takes to renovate a space completely and change its purpose from one thing to a completely different thing? Well, that's what we did here. We came into this space as offices, and we transformed it into this recording studio that you see. And I want to tell you a little bit how we did that with no experience whatsoever. Come with me, I'm going to show you around. So first things first, when we came in here, the ceiling was about as high as this light. You could reach up and touch it, and that is just not ideal for a recording studio. You bring loud instruments in and it's just going to sound like you're recording things in a box. So we didn't want to do that. First thing we decided was the ceiling had to go. So we took out the drop ceiling that was here. We took out the actual ceiling that was just below the joists, and we left the joists and all the way up to the roof that you can see up there. Now there was an attic in that space, and there was a layer of 45-year-old insulation that was absolutely disgusting. We had to get rid of all of that, and we were left with the bare decking, the wood of the ceiling up above. Now, there's a couple problems with that. One, sound gets through that pretty easily. Two, it doesn't meet building code. And three, it's just gonna reflect sound back down in a very bad way. So we thought, well, we've got to figure out what to do with that, but we'll sort that out later. There were windows all along this wall here, from one side to the other. And you can see them from the outside if you go out there, but we covered them all up, covered them with insulation, and obviously there are no windows in here now. There was also, just up to the wall over here, we decided to put in a closet in this area. So you can see our cables hanging here. We have a tool chest full of goodies. And in this space, we actually have a plug. I don't know if you can see that or not. We have a plug in the window. So we could pull that plug out and put a sign or lighting or something in that window to advertise for the studio. And we do intend to do that. We just haven't gotten around to it yet. We got storage and what have you in this closet. There wasn't much we could use when we got here. There was baseboard heating all around the edge that wasn't actually functional anymore, so we had to remove those. We took out all of the drywall and the studs. The outside of this building is block, concrete block, which is a fantastic sound insulator, so we had a good starting place. And so we had this all the way down to the block walls, and we had cleaned up, taken all the carpet out, all the flooring out. It was down to concrete flooring. There was actually, right about where you're standing right now, just behind you, there was a shower and a bathroom. We didn't have much need for a shower. We needed the space, so we took all of that out, gutted it. There's a little platform over here with some plumbing under it that we left just in case someday somebody wants to put the shower back in. We did take this bathroom completely out when we were doing the demolition as well. So that we could sort of start from scratch, because we just kept the footprint the same in the architectural diagrams, but we stripped everything out. We ripped all of it out. There was a small hallway right here that went that way down. That was sort of a kitchenette area where there was a microwave and some things like that. We decided we didn't need that. We needed a vocal booth, so we turned it into that. We got rid of the hallway and just set up a wall and the glass, which is behind you. Here's the glass that leads to the control room. And this is funny. This is a plumbing fixture that is not in use, but we were not able to remove it. So we painted it black in the hopes that nobody would notice it. And so far it's gone pretty unnoticed. But that's kind of the joke of the build, was what are we gonna do with this plumbing fixture? But it worked out okay. We haven't used it yet. It might be a good, maybe we can make it a percussive sound in one of our videos or in a song. Anyway, you can see the rack of snare drums over here, the platform I talked about. There's some plumbing underneath that. You can see the PA hanging over here. Down here we have, let me move these out of the way. Down here you can see our studio Patchbay. We've got 24 inputs available here. We've got 8 outputs or sends. We've got 2 Ethernet ports, some TRS and some TS. and then a couple of room for expansion. Not all of it's wired up. I did a lot of future proofing when I was designing it, but then you can see the cables come out the top here of the box and go through a port into the other side of this wall into the control room. This port is custom built. Now there are ports that you can put in a wall that's for cabling to go through a wall that are soundproof, and they cost upwards of $600 to $800 a piece. That seemed ridiculous to me, so I designed and built my own. If you'd like to see a video about that, let me know. I'd be glad to tell you how I did that and how you can do it too. So anyway, our patch bay here, coming through these connectors, they go to the other side to D-sub connectors, and then we've got things connected over there. What we decided to do with the ceiling was we talked to a general contractor who suggested we put spray foam up there. So we called the spray foam company, and they said, oh yeah, we can get you up to code with a layer of spray foam on the roof. And that seemed to be a good idea. These are 2 layers of drywall on what are essentially springs mounted to the stud wall behind it, filled with mineral wool insulation, and then an air gap of about 1 inch to 2 inches, and then the block wall behind it. So now no sound goes through these walls. Now up higher, there was a gable vent on the outside. That's all foamed in and covered over. We didn't need the gable vent because we got rid of the attic, but there is the weak spot in the wall is definitely where the gable vent is, though it doesn't cause any problems. That's just the least soundproof part of the studio right there. So we have these walls. The second wall is all throughout the studio. The entire perimeter of the studio has that secondary wall inside the block wall. And then of course this vestibule wall is the same kind of wall. We've got on one side of it, there's 2 layers of drywall sprung from steel studs, by the way, because those are less resonant than wooden studs. So they're sprung from the steel studs with a layer of mineral wool and then a single layer of drywall on the other side. So we have soundproofing between the live room and the vestibule, and then of course that creates a room of isolation between here and the control room, which I'll take you over there to see. So that's the basic construction of the studio. We decided to leave the joists exposed and keep the roof up there exposed because the spray foam ended up making this room sound great. It's a very random, very natural diffuser. And so we get the sound sort of balloons and blooms in the room rather than being echoey or dead. So it sounds really good in here. The other things we've done to the live room, we put these large absorption panels in here. These are about 6 inches thick. That gets us down, if I remember correctly, to somewhere around 300 hertz or so of absorption, which works really well. We have these diffusers up here that keep the drum sound sort of isolated in this area if we put the drums here, or if they're the only thing in the room, we can put them right in the middle and set up the mics around them, and they sound huge and big and amazing. So we have a lot of options with loud instruments in this live room, and we absolutely love it. The other thing we do at this live room is we rent it out for rehearsal space because we thought we're not always recording in here. Why not get people in here to hear the room, to enjoy it, and make a little money on the side? So we installed a PA system. You can see up here we've got some powered JBL speakers flying from the joists. Down here we've got a Behringer Eurorack mixer that's all wired in and ready to go. So we just set up a few SM58s and let the band have at it. And the bands that come here and rehearse think that the room sounds great. They love coming here. We try to keep the place really clean and keep all of the equipment working and functional. Touch up nicks in the walls when we can. Just make it comfortable and nice, and a nice place to be. Some of the things we've ended up collecting, this is my Boss Katana digital guitar amp. You may have opinions about whether you like digital amps or not. I actually love this amp because it sounds like a lot of different amps. I can get a really nice clean tone out of it. I can get a really heavy distorted sound out of it. And all of it sounds fantastic, especially in the mix. You probably would never know you were listening to a digital amp. Shortly after we got the project started, we were opening up the doors. We were kind of worried we weren't going to have a bass amp of any kind, and bass equipment is heavy. So we ended up coming by this Ampeg BA210, which is a gem of a bass amp. It has a hybrid digital and analog amp. And as long as you keep the effects turned off, it sounds fantastic. And we've had really good results. Bands that come in to rehearse love this thing, coming in and sort of recording in a live setting. It works great. It has a direct out and some other good stuff that make it sound good with just about any bass. So these drums, the black Sonar kit, belonged to Wesley. This was one of his kits, and he decided to essentially donate it to the studio. So it sits here. This is our primary rehearsal kit. This snare drum is one that I've had since high school. That thing is a piece of junk. It's falling apart, but it sounds fantastic, and it's really funny how people go grab it out of the rack, and that's the one they end up using, and it's probably the cheapest, most janky snare drum we've got. Speaking of snare drums, there's our snare drum rack over here. This one comes with the red Sonar kit that's in the corner. I'll tell you about that in a minute. We've got a piccolo, another wooden snare, and then a few other things, and a set of bongos down there. We have a lot of fun here. One of the fun things about running a rehearsal space is we meet a lot of people, and people like to barter. So at one point a band came in, they rehearsed, and the drummer told us he had a white Crush Drums 7-piece kit. I believe it was 7-piece, and was selling it for really cheap. Told us it was in really good condition and asked if we wanted to buy it for the studio. And I thought, you know what? That's a nice set of drums. It's a good size, bunch of sizes. We could make a lot of use of it, piece it together here and there. So we paid him the money, and we got the drum set. We brought it in here, and the drum kit was in good shape. It needed a little work. It had a couple mesh heads and a couple missing lugs, and I sort of put it in the corner and thought, okay, I'll get to that. That's going to be a project. We can use parts of it now. Eventually, it'll be a really nice kit. Not too long after that, we had another band come in to rehearse, and the drummer from that band saw the white Crush kit and said he'd always wanted a kit like that. He really liked it and asked if we would trade straight up for this beautiful red Fade Sonar kit. And so this kit in the corner is the result of a little bit of bartering, and this kit sounds amazing in this room. This kick drum here, if you can see this down here, this thing is huge sounding. Like, it's massive. So we have a lot of fun with that as well. That's probably about it for this room. We keep this drum kit up most of the time. This is what you get to use if you come and rehearse at Fireside. We've got K Zildjian cymbals, the Sonar drums, whatever snare drum you want to use, DW pick pedal. We don't put the cheap stuff in here for the rehearsals. So we love that. We love meeting people. All right, well, that's enough of this room. Let's go explore the control room. All right, let's have a look in here now. So this is our control room. Control room means that the sound is controlled in here. It doesn't necessarily mean it's dead. It doesn't mean it's particularly live. We still have a lot of work to get this room exactly like we want it, but it certainly is controlled enough where we can get really good results in here. So, starting with the most important thing, this is our coffee station. Unfortunately, all we have is a Keurig at the moment. Maybe one day we'll have a nice espresso machine or something, but you all need coffee. It's true. We have right here, along here, we've got Wesley's collection of West African percussion and other things. Wesley actually teaches West African percussion. He's been studying it for 30 years. Phenomenally interesting. Talk to Wesley about West African percussion if you get the chance. I can't remember what any of these instruments are called, so you'll have to ask him. It's a great opportunity to talk to him. Hit him up. Moving this way, we've got our desk. Now, we don't run a recording console. We run interfaces, and we run mostly in the box with effects and what have you. But this desk itself, I built this with the help of my friend Todd in his wood shop. So this is a custom-made desk, and you can tell by the way the corners are not perfectly rounded, but don't look too close. Just look at it and think, oh, that looks great, right? Don't look too close. We've got rack space for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. We've got 10 rack spaces on each side of the center desk. We've got the Mac Studio running up here. The monitor, we've got Focal Alpha 80s that we're running as our primary monitors. And I pulled these old M-Audio BX5s. Most of you probably have seen a BX5 in your life. I think Guitar Center used to use these in their keyboard room to monitor, all plugged into all the keyboards, so you could test them out. Guitar Center or some other defunct music store, I don't know. Anyway, so these crummy sounding BX5s are our secondary monitors. You push the button and you hear what it sounds on bad monitors, so that it still sounds okay. Your mix sounds good, it translates. As far as the equipment we use, we've got Focusrite interfaces. This is the latest gen Scarlett interface. I highly recommend Focusrite interfaces. They're fantastic. The customer support is amazing. They're just really, really great products. And then 2 older Claret interfaces. So a total of 24 inputs on these guys, and a variety of sends, whatever we need. We have a WA412 preamp, which is the API style preamp made by Warm Audio, which we dig a lot. We get great tones out of that guy. We've got the patching is pretty simple. We have a Patchbay down here, but it doesn't change much. It basically routes the inputs, or a few of the inputs, to outputs that we can change, send through the compressor. We do have one outboard compressor over there, but it doesn't do too much. The XLR routing up here just gives us an opportunity to route connections from the vocal booth, which is over here, through the preamp and into the interfaces. Otherwise, all 24 channels are routed to the Patchbay out there, but with a quick change here, now our first channel of the preamp is now coming from the channel 1 in the vocal booth. So that makes that pretty easy and simple, straightforward. The interfaces also have front inputs, so if I want to plug in an electric guitar and just go through an amp sim, I can just plug a cable right into here and rock out right here in front of the desk. This is our pile of patch cables, all kinds of weird cables and normal cables and whatever we need from time to time. This is our collection of guitar picks here, actually. These, most of these have been left behind at some point, and we've just sort of piled them in the corner over here, so that's kind of fun. We've got, this is my corner of the studio. I've got part of my collection of guitars and a few effects and pedals and various devices and mandolin, ukulele, all that kind of fun stuff that you collect as a guitar player over the years. In here is our vocal booth, and then I come in here. I don't know if it's going to sound any different with this lapel mic, but it is completely dead in here, and we keep our WA87 in here, always hooked up and ready to go. It works amazingly well, sounds great in here. You get just purely the singer's voice, and we get great results in here. We love this room. So, similar to the live room, the walls in here are double walled. I told you the entire perimeter of the studio is lined with the double wall. So we have 2 layers of drywall sprung off the studs with mineral wool, air gap, and then the concrete block on the other side of it. Now there were 2 windows in here as well, and as you can see, this wall has no windows in it. So we covered over those, insulated them, shut them down. They're unusable. The ceiling in here is the original ceiling. We didn't have a need to raise the ceiling in here, but you will see that we have this cloud up above the ceiling. Up above the desk. This cloud helps prevent reflections off the ceiling and creates a sort of controlled environment right here in the hot seat. Now, if we close those curtains, we don't get any sound reflection off the glass, so closing those curtains helps us to get a better mix that translates better. We have soundproofing around that is tactically placed to absorb the most sound in the right places. Possibly you see these, another big 6-inch thick absorber here to get as low as we can. There is an interesting aspect of the room. We found that sitting on this couch right here, I moved my giant bags of stuff. Sitting on this couch, you get a lot more bass from the monitors than you get an accurate translation in the chair in front of the desk. Sitting right here, the low end is a little heavier, so it's not such a bad thing. We can have the client sit here and the low end rumbles them a little bit, even though that's the mix is actually pretty accurate up there, and it works out pretty well. You can see against this wall we have diffusion panels. These come from a design called the Depot diffuser. It was a quadratic residue diffuser pattern that I found on the internet that was made to be able to be built from common boards you could find at your big box lumber yard. So I took that design and modified it to make it a little nicer looking, to use a little less wood than what they were using. But the design is the same, and it's effective. So the point of a diffuser, and we can go into this in another video again if you're interested, the point of a diffuser is to stop direct reflections of sound and interrupt the modes and such that reflections can cause without losing the energy. So an absorber, which are these gray panels, those absorb the energy. It takes sound energy and changes it into heat energy and dissipates it into the room. So that sound just disappears. But the diffuser diffuses the sound energy. So rather than having it bounce right back at you, it gets scattered all over the place. So the energy of the sound stays in the room, which means the sound stays loud, but it doesn't sound bad. It helps it sound better without being quieter. So we have this placed directly behind the desk, so that rather than just absorbing all the sound right behind, we do get at least some scatter back to maintain the energy of the room and not have to crank the monitors quite so loud. So there's some other interesting things we had to do with this room. The fire alarm. We had to have that moved around, and when the drywall was put in, I can't remember exactly what happened, but essentially we had a hole there without a fire alarm for a long time, and then they finally patched it and put the fire alarm in. But it took a while. There was just a hole in the wall for a long time. That's our control room, and you can see the live room right on the other side of the window there, and that's what we've got. We would love to have you come check it out in person. Give it a listen in person. Bring your loudest guitar. Well, I hope you enjoyed that tour of our studio. Hit that like button, hit the subscribe button, and let me know in the comments if there's something you saw that you'd like to know more about. I can make another video about that. Leave me a comment and let me know if there's something we could do better, if there's something we really blew it on. Maybe we can make it better. I'd love to know that too. You can find us online at playfireside.com. Shoot us an email or a message or give us a call. We'd love to hang out. All right, see you in the next one.